introduction. I promise you I don't intend to cause any pain. I don't intend to lash anybody. I also don't want to speak for too long because I do want to respect the fact that Ms. Tlabisa, you've called us here so that we could all take the time to dialogue and ensure that the voice of the people that actually lead municipalities is properly heard. As I greet you, Ms. Tlabisa, greeting the Deputy Minister, Masebola, the Executive Mayor of Johannesburg, thank you for your welcome, sir. The DG, I think, is online, and the DDGs are in the room. The leaders of political parties, the members of political parties. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm greeting from a cold Gauteng this morning. This morning's dialogue is indeed very important because it allows us to truly reflect on what are the barriers that sit between us and the things we hope for. The things we hope for in terms of what's going to make local government work, what's going to make every single municipality work for its citizens. And I do hope that as we dialogue today, we'll start to courageously engage with those things that are barriers. Maybe let me just recap on what it is I do, because I know sometimes I show up as that woman who speaks too much, speaks too fast, and complains all the time. So, the Office of the Auditor General has been set out in the Constitution to support democracy by auditing and reporting in a manner that helps achieve a couple of things. One, we've got to help those that are entrusted with running local government institutions do so better. So we've interpreted this to say that through our audit reports and our insights and how we engage, let's help the people that are running local government have some information that helps them get better incrementally. Two, let's help the people that are charged with overseeing the administration of local government do so better. So to what extent are we helping the people in councils do their oversight work even better? Three, let's ensure that through advances in performance and transparency, we help citizens hold their elected officials accountable. That's the primary job of an AG anywhere in the world, and it is so in our country. The law in South Africa, the Public Audit Act in particular, Section 20 requires that when I conduct audits, and I don't do all the audits myself, as you all know, I run an institution that is made up of 4,000 people who conduct audits every single year. Now, Section 20 of the Public Audit Act sets out that when we conduct our audits, we've got to look at three critical things. One, the financial statements. Why is this important? It helps us assess whether or not the information in the financial statements is credible. It's not a tick of judgment on whether you're performing well or not. It's merely to say whoever uses your financial statements, can they believe them? And that's important because those financial statements form the basis on which the council is going to assess how the administration is running. It forms the basis on which a mayor is going to assess how the administration is running their affairs. It's going to form the basis on which citizens assess how their rates and taxes are being deployed. It's also going to inform capital providers on how they're going to rely on what you do. So if you are a municipality and your job is to raise revenue, your customers want to know that you're running the affairs properly. If you are raising money on the capital markets, you're busy borrowing money from other companies or from banks, they also want to make sure that they can rely on the financial statements. So it's important that you have an unqualified opinion on financial statements. It's important that your financial statements be reliable. Otherwise, the people that should be giving you money so you can do the things you want to do, whether it's fixing potholes or fixing your distribution infrastructure for water and electricity, whatever it may be. If you're wanting to raise money from a bank or from anyone else, you best make sure that at the very least you've got credible financial statements. And you want citizens to at least believe that when you want to increase their rates and taxes, you're going to deploy those funds properly, you best ensure that you have an unqualified audit opinion. The second thing that the Public Audit Act says we must do is look at performance information. What is that about? Maybe Sometimes I explain it like this. All we do is we say whether your performance report is credible. So I have a little girl, she goes to school, and every now and again I have to meet with her teacher. And the teacher gives me a report card. And in preparation for that teacher's meeting, I sit and I look at it and I say, hey, maths is going okay, but English is not going so well. Maybe I must get her a tutor for life skills. Let's just say that. I can talk to my child about how she's doing. I can also talk to the teacher about how she's doing. The tick of the Auditor General on your performance report is not saying you are an A student. It is saying you can rely on the performance report. That's what it is. Surely that's important, right? You want to be able to say to your residents, okay, I didn't do everything I said I was going to do, but you can believe that what I'm telling you I've done is correct. And that's important for accountability and for transparency and for citizens to trust you. The third aspect we look at is compliance. Compliance with the rule of law, compliance with the key laws and regulations that govern how finances and performance management should be run. Now that's important. Citizens want to know that the people that they've entrusted with running public institutions on their behalf respect the rule of law. It's also important because as politicians you set rules about how procurement must happen, for example. You want to make sure that the people implementing those laws at least have a healthy regard to operate within the rule of law. So that's what a clean audit is about. Somebody who has operated within the rule of law, somebody who has a credible performance report, that report card is credible, and somebody who has got credible financial statements that can be relied upon. I always say to people, those are the basics we should expect from every single public institution. Because actually, if you're not getting a clean audit, or at least striving to attain a clean audit, it says the most unflattering things about your tendency to operate within the rule of law. Make sure that you are driving proper performance management and accountability for performance, and that you are transparent about how you deploy public funds. So these things are important. And I'm glad Prof. Kemi begs you to please listen to our audit messages. I'm hoping to appeal to you today to say, when we give these audit outcomes, look beyond the colors of the green and the yellow and the purple, but understand what it tells you about the state of management, the state of stewardship in that institution. So we have to audit everyone every single year, and then we give these audit reports. At the Office of the AG, because we've been seized with trying to make sure that the people that run government have a better appreciation of how things are going, and they can link the debits and credits, the performance report, the compliance issues to service delivery things that are important to you, especially as political parties. We have worked extremely hard to create that link so that we can no longer have anybody credibly tell us that, well, you know, it's okay to have a disclaimer because our people don't eat clean audits. People used to say that. They don't say that anymore now. I don't hear it anymore. And it tells me that we are winning in terms of helping people understand that the dysfunction that leads to a disclaimer of audit opinion is the same dysfunction that leads to wastewater treatment plants that are in disrepair. The dysfunction that leads to a disclaimer or an adverse audit opinion is the same disclaimer that leads to infrastructure that goes unmaintained, leading to service delivery problems. Dysfunction at the governance level within an institution, such as a municipality, leads to real financial loss. Capital providers, because metros and especially are structured such that there are institutions that must collaborate and cooperate with the private sector, either because they are raising funding or because they are actually getting the local economic development trajectory happening through capital investment by others. It's important that these things happen in an environment where you are trusted as the people that are running municipalities. Absolutely crucial. So, let me just recap a little bit on on what it is we've seen through MFMA 2024. And you would have heard this when we tabled our report just a couple of weeks ago, so I won't go through too much detail. Our report this time around, you will have noticed, spends a lot of time talking about the accountability ecosystem. We spend a great deal of time interrogating the role that's being played by different players. So yes, we do talk about what the Section 56 managers do, what the MM does, what the internal auditors do, what the audit committee does. We do spend time on that. But more and more, we realize that if you look at the governance arrangements of a municipality, you must equally worry about the mayor. Ask critical questions about whether or not the mayor is doing his or her job as provided for in the law, in the design of how a municipality should function. So you'll see that our report spends a great deal of time elaborating on key issues about, well, does the mayor actually take charge of monitoring how a budget is being implemented? Because Section 54 of the MSA says that they must. Does the mayor take into account the quarterly performance report that comes from the city manager and make adjustments as the case may be? Do they use that report to good effect to drive accountability for performance so that the promises made to citizens are actually met? We look at the role of council as a whole in terms of dealing with oversight matters. But interestingly, this time we spent a bit of time looking at the role of the speaker. And the key question we've been asking around the role of the speaker is, well, if we look at the aspirations of the 1998 White Paper on Local Government, if we look at what's sitting in the Municipal Systems Act, we observe that there is a particular responsibility placed on the speaker to drive the citizen engagement process when they compile the IDP, as well as the SDP. They've got to take into account the needs of and wants of citizens in that particular municipality. And so we then keep asking ourselves the question, to what extent are the speakers fulfilling that particular duty? Because if they were, I wonder if we would see the type of IDPs we see. Because frankly, some of them are cut and paste, jobs done by consultants. We wonder, if the white paper from 1998 says that when performance planning is being done, when the IDP and the SDP are being done, there must be proper engagement with all of the stakeholders of a municipality. And then the white paper clarifies who these stakeholders are. And yes, it's residents, and they say you must go and engage with the wards. And many speakers can tick that box very easily. They show you the attendance records of the ward committee meetings. And it also says they must engage with business. And because I'm curious about these things, we didn't audit this part. I looked at it because I'm curious. What I found that most metros, not all, most metros, do not document how they're engaging with business. It suggests to me that they're not. Maybe you can ask the question as political parties, do you have in the municipalities, or are you deploying into municipalities mayors and speakers that are up to the task of engaging properly with business, making promises that are likely to be fulfilled, winning the confidence of business and capital providers, and being seen to be accountable and transparent by all of their stakeholders? Only you can ask that question. Answer that question. I can only ask it, and I'm asking it boldly because the white paper from 1998 sets those things out. And Honourable Minister, as we are thinking about this review, and this is really the upshot of what I wanted to share today, as we are thinking about reviewing the white paper on local government, I urge us to engage courageously on what are these barriers. Because when I read the 1998 white paper, and I did it personally through the holidays, and then I asked my team to also look at it. Because we forget, you see. Sometimes we forget. And I said, everybody go back and read this white paper. And the team came back to me and they said, you know, if only the 1998 white paper had been implemented, we would not be here today. So the question I want to ask is, what are these barriers that stand between us and doing the things that are in the current white paper? Because if we do not confront them, the review process into a new white paper will lead us into a space where we currently are anyway. The review document, the discussion document that was released for comment by the National Minister of Culture, is a fantastic document. It sets out credibly an analysis of what the real issues are. It asks critical questions of all of us to answer, and I do invite every single political party to engage with that document. It's well written, it's articulate, it sets out all the key issues. I could not find anything missing. And there are some interesting additions about thinking about the resilience of institutions, especially as we're dealing with growing pressures and growing uncertainty where we operate, right? So I think that's important. So it's important that we engage with the process. I just want to put on the table that our reflection as an audit office is this. The 1998 white paper was fantastic. It's good to review it, but that must be followed with a very bold and courageous assessment and recommitment to implementing it. And implementing it, as I see it, is going to take the political parties genuinely thinking about whom are we deploying to take on the roles and responsibilities in the municipal space. You see, when we audit, often our audit report will talk about the accounting officer. So even when you sit in council, you look to the CM and the MM and the CFO, and then MPAC will do a report about MM must do this, and CFO must deal with this, and this HOD must deal with this, and that's all good and well. Today, I want to highlight that these things will only work when mayors are up to the task and are disciplined in implementing that task. This thing will only work if you've got MMCs that are genuinely up to the task. It'll only work if you have speakers that are genuinely up to the task. Often when we issue these outcomes, people say, well, AG man, tell us about the internal audit, how's that going? Why is internal audit not working? Yeah, there are problems with internal audit. Where are the audit committees? Yeah, there are problems with the audit committees. Where's MPAC? Yeah, there's problems with MPAC. But here's what I've learned. If you have a city manager that understands the importance of a strong internal audit function and respects the value of a strong internal audit function, they'll make sure it's there. And if you have a mayor that equally understands the value of a strong internal audit function and audit committee function, they'll make sure it's there. And the reverse is true. If you have a speaker that understands the importance of a strong, well-capacitated, disciplined, effective impact, they'll make sure it's there. And the reverse is true. Is the problem about training? Sometimes. But we can do many, many training sessions. But for as long as nobody worries about who they're deploying there in the first place, or making sure that those people have stability of tenure, it is an exercise in futility. Somebody laughed at me when I walked in this morning and they said, AG, you speak with such passion. And then they actually laughed, you are so passionate about this stuff. And perhaps this is true. Because I've understood that beyond the debits and credits, beyond the colors of audit outcomes, are real lived experiences that affect me, my children, and their children. It is real issues that stand between us and driving economic growth and job creation and proper participation in our democracy. Beyond the debits and credits are real questions we have to keep answering for ourselves amongst each other around how are we going to bring into real experience a local government sphere that works. Maybe the last part I wanted to add to this discourse. In looking at the accountability ecosystem, as the audit office, yes, we looked within the municipality, we looked at the role of council and the mayors and the speakers, but we also equally looked at the role of provincial and national government. And so you would have seen that our audit report and our general report over the last 2.5 years or so has focused a lot on the role of the provincial COGTA, the national COGTA, provincial treasury, national treasury, the legislature, as well as the National Assembly and the NCOP. We've looked very carefully at the role of the Premier and even the role of the President. Why are these things important? The white paper back in 1998 highlighted the need for collaboration, for cooperation, for coordination across all the spheres. When we read even the legislation, we struggle to find the word autonomous. We find the words interdependent. When we read section 54 of the Constitution, we're very clear. Or 154 of the Constitution, we're very clear about what are the things that need to be done on a regular basis by the other spheres of government. And so, again, we said, you know what, beyond the platitudes, let's just go back and read the legislation and figure out who's not doing what. And so that's why our report this time around talks a lot about, you know, MEC COGTA in every province should be doing a few things. Assessing the performance of every municipality and reporting on that to the legislature. The law provides that every single MEC of COGTA in a province must provide a report into the legislature that says how's every municipality dealing with AG findings every year. So we would ask the simple question, are these reports being done? And quite often they were not being done. We would ask the question, are they being submitted into the legislature? Sometimes they were not, sometimes they were. Then when they get them, we ask the speaker, what are you doing with these reports? And we realize that, for whatever reason, these disciplines had been lost. The white paper in 98 was very clear. The legislation, the MFMA, the Systems Act, the Structures Act were very clear around the obligations and responsibilities that sit with each of the different spheres. For whatever reason, we've tended not to implement them. Once again, we're going to have to keep asking ourselves, what are these barriers to implementation? Because even when we do make amendments in the review process, these barriers will still present themselves unless we are courageous in confronting them. What we've observed is that far too many MECs were unaware that this was their responsibility, and if they did these things, it was a tick box. They would take the IDP and review it through the department because that's what they're supposed to do, but it was a tick box. So we've got to figure out what is it that stands between us and real substantive work on these things. Because the intention of the white paper back in 98 was that performance planning must be done in a coordinated way. The IDP of every municipality must be reviewed by the MEC COGTA and the Premier. Why? So that they can shape the development trajectory for their province. Now, if they do it as a tick box, no wonder we end up with IDPs that make no sense, that give little expression to the real fundamental performance obligations of local government, and are cut and paste jobs because we want to tick the box and say we've done it. The law provides that the MEC must review the performance of local government. Why is that? So that they can say, see, every year, how we're doing as a province. Are we hitting the mark? Are we making gains on the development work that we're supposed to deal with? Well, what we see is that work doesn't get done. If it's done, it's a tick box. Again, we're going to have to keep asking ourselves a real question about what is the role of the provinces and how do we give proper effect to it? And how do we hold those in provincial and national government accountable for these things? It can no longer be that a provincial legislature waits for the AG to give a report and acts surprised, and now wants to run into into oversight mode. The design of the governance arrangements provided for regular reviews, regular engagement, regular action. Let's think carefully about what are these challenges and impediments to real implementation. Program Director, I'm going to ask that I end my remarks at this time. As you know, I'm a woman of few words, haha. But I do this because I know that I've been deliberately straying from my script, but again, because I do feel strongly about this, because I think the time for us to genuinely engage on how we're going to bring into proper implementation mode the things that are important to us has really come. And the urgency with which we've got to do this work faces us every day. When you look at the flood disaster that killed people in the Eastern Cape just recently, we are reminded of the urgency with which we've got to act to build institutions of local government so that they are institutions that do work. Thank you.